I still remember that Tuesday morning like it was yesterday. The sun was coming through my bedroom window in Denver, and I had no idea my whole life was about to fall apart. I was getting ready for work, thinking about the presentation I had to give when someone knocked on my door. Two police officers stood there with serious faces. They told me my fingerprints were found at a crime scene in Phoenix, Arizona. The problem was, I had never been to Phoenix in my entire life. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you enjoy stories about truth betrayal and fighting for justice, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. What the detective showed me later changed everything I thought I knew about friendship. Now let me tell you what happened. My name is Jay, and at the time I was 30 years old working as a software engineer at a tech company in Denver, Colorado. Life was good. I had a stable job that I loved, a beautiful girlfriend named Lauren, who I planned to marry someday, and a comfortable apartment with a view of the mountains. I thought I had everything figured out, but that morning, standing in my doorway in my pajamas, everything changed. The two officers asked me to come with them to the police station. They said it was just for questioning, but the way they looked at me told a different story. I asked if I could call my girlfriend first, and they said I could call from the station. That was when I knew something was seriously wrong. At the Denver police station, I sat in a cold interrogation room for almost 2 hours before anyone came to talk to me. The walls were gray, and there was a single table with 2 chairs. A mirror covered one wall, and I knew people were watching me from the other side. I kept telling myself this was some kind of mistake that would be cleared up soon. Then Detective Marcus Webb walked in. He had flown all the way from Phoenix just to talk to me. He was a man in his late 40s with sharp eyes that seemed to look right through you. His hair was graying at the temples, and he carried a thick folder under his arm. He sat down across from me and opened the folder without saying a word. Detective Webb explained the situation. 3 weeks ago, there was an armed robbery at a jewelry store in Phoenix. 2 masked men broke in after hours, cracked open the safe, and stole merchandise worth over $200,000. A security guard tried to stop them and got beaten badly. He was still in the hospital with serious injuries. I told the detective I was sorry to hear that, but I did not understand what it had to do with me. That was when he slid a photograph across the table. The photograph showed a fingerprint lifted from the safe. Detective Webb said they ran it through the national database and got a match. The fingerprint belonged to me. I felt like the room was spinning. I told him that was impossible. I had never been to Phoenix. I had never robbed anyone in my life. I was a software engineer who spent his days writing code, not cracking safes. Detective Webb did not seem convinced. He pulled out another piece of evidence. Security camera footage from the jewelry store. The video was grainy and dark, but it showed 2 figures moving through the store. One of them had a build similar to mine. Same height, same broad shoulders. Then he showed me something else. The getaway car in the footage was a dark blue Honda Accord. I felt my stomach drop. I drove a dark blue Honda Accord. The license plate in the video was fake, but the car model was exact. I tried to explain. I told him I was home that night with my girlfriend Lauren. She could confirm I never left Denver. Detective Webb wrote down her name and said they would check my alibi. But the way he looked at me, I could tell he did not believe a word I said. After several more hours of questioning, they finally let me go. But there was a condition. I was not allowed to leave the state of Colorado. They took my passport and told me not to go anywhere. I walked out of that police station feeling like a criminal, even though I had done nothing wrong. When I got home, Lauren was waiting for me. She had been worried sick after I did not show up for work and did not answer my phone. I sat her down and told her everything. At first she said she believed me. She held my hand and told me we would figure this out together. But I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. A flicker of doubt. A tiny question mark that she tried to hide but could not completely. The news spread fast. By the next day, my boss called me into his office. He said the company had heard about my situation, and they thought it would be best if I took a leave of absence while the investigation was ongoing. They would pay me, but they did not want me coming into the office. I understood what they really meant. They did not want a suspected armed robber sitting in their building. My co-workers started acting different too. People who used to laugh with me at lunch now avoided eye contact. They whispered when I walked by. The only person who still treated me normal was Travis, a guy who had started at the company around the same time as me. Travis told me he did not care what the police said. He knew I was not capable of something like that. That night I called my mother Brenda back in Ohio. I needed to hear her voice, needed her to tell me everything would be okay. But when I finished explaining what happened, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then she asked me a question that broke my heart. She said, "Jay, are you sure you are not involved in anything? Are you absolutely certain, my own mother? The woman who raised me, who knew me better than anyone. Even she had doubts." I hung up the phone and lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. How did my fingerprints end up at a crime scene in a city I had never visited? It made no sense. But I had no answers, only questions that kept me awake all night. 2 weeks later, I received a summons to appear in court. The prosecutors had decided to officially charge me with armed robbery and aggravated assault. The evidence, they said, was overwhelming. My fingerprints on the safe, the security footage, the matching car model. It was enough to take to trial. I was arrested again, but this time they did not let me go home. The judge denied bail because of the serious nature of the charges. Armed robbery with injuries could mean 20 years in prison. They considered me a flight risk and a danger to the community. They assigned me a public defender. He was an overworked man in a wrinkled suit who looked like he had not slept in days. He met with me for 15 minutes and reviewed my case file while eating a sandwich. His advice was simple: plead guilty. Take a deal. With a guilty plea, I might get 5 to 7 years instead of 20. I looked him in the eyes and told him I was not going to plead guilty to something I did not do. He sighed and said the evidence was clear. Fingerprints do not lie. DNA does not lie. Fighting this case would be expensive and probably pointless. I asked him what he meant by DNA. He looked surprised, like he assumed I already knew. He flipped through the file and showed me the latest forensic report. They had found a strand of hair at the crime scene. The DNA matched mine perfectly. That night, I was transferred to the county jail to await trial. Nothing in my life had prepared me for what I experienced there. The constant noise that never stopped day or night. The harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead 24 hours a day. The smell of sweat and despair that seemed to seep into the walls. I was given an orange jumpsuit and a thin mattress in a cell I shared with a man who had been arrested for drug dealing. He did not talk much, which was fine by me. I kept to myself, trying to stay invisible. I did not want trouble. I just wanted to survive until I could prove my innocence. One of the other inmates, a big man named Gus with tattoos covering both arms, gave me some advice during my first meal in the cafeteria. He said, in a place like this, innocent men die faster than guilty ones. If you want to survive, you need to be strong, or at least look strong. I understood what he meant. In jail, weakness was an invitation for trouble. So I kept my head up, my mouth shut, and my fists ready, even though I had never been in a real fight in my life. The nights were the hardest. Lying on that thin mattress, I could not stop thinking about my old life. My apartment with the mountain view. My desk at work with the photo of Lauren and me at the beach. The dinner we had planned for our 2-year anniversary. All of it felt like a dream, now something that happened to someone else. After I had been locked up for a week, Lauren came to visit. She sat on the other side of a thick glass window, and we had to talk through phones that crackled with static. Her eyes were red from crying, and she could not look at me directly. She told me she could not do this anymore. Her family was pressuring her to leave me. Her job was being affected because people knew her boyfriend was in jail for armed robbery. She said she was sorry, so sorry, but she could not wait years for a trial that might not go my way. I tried to explain. I told her I was innocent, that I would prove it somehow. But she had already made up her mind. She placed something on the counter in front of her. It was the promise ring I had given her on our first anniversary. The ring that was supposed to be replaced by an engagement ring someday. She stood up and walked away without looking back. A guard came and took the ring. He said he would make sure I received it with my personal belongings. I sat there holding that phone to my ear long after she was gone, listening to the dial tone. I did not cry. I felt like something inside me had died, but no tears came. My mother never visited. I called her collect several times, but she never accepted the charges. The only person who stayed in touch was Travis. He wrote me letters every week telling me he believed in me and was trying to find a way to help. 3 weeks into my time in jail, I got an unexpected visitor. Detective Marcus Webb had come from Phoenix again. In the visiting room, he sat across from me with a strange expression on his face. He told me he had been reviewing the case and something was bothering him. He showed me the forensic report again and pointed to the DNA evidence. He said the hair they found was a perfect match for my DNA. Combined with the fingerprints, it should be an open and shut case. But here was the problem. The hair was found on the safe right next to where the fingerprints were. It was almost too perfect, too convenient. Detective Webb leaned forward and said either I was the best liar he had ever met in 23 years of police work, or something about this case did not add up. I asked him if he believed I was innocent. He did not answer directly. He just said he believed in evidence, and right now the evidence was telling 2 different stories. One story said I was guilty. Another story said someone wanted him to think I was guilty. That was the first moment of hope I had felt since this nightmare began. Someone in law enforcement was finally starting to question the case against me. That night, lying in my cell, I started thinking. Really thinking. If someone had planted my fingerprints and DNA at a crime scene, it had to be someone who had access to my personal belongings. Someone who could get my fingerprints from things I touched. Someone who could collect strands of my hair. Someone who knew enough about my life to frame me convincingly. The list of people who had that kind of access was short. Lauren, my mother, my co-workers, and one other person, my best friend since high school, Derek. I decided I was not going to sit in jail and wait for fate to decide my future. I needed to take action. Through Travis, I got in contact with a young lawyer named Nathan Caldwell. He had just passed the bar exam 2 years ago and was looking to make a name for himself. He came to see me in jail, and I told him my entire story from the beginning. Nathan listened carefully. When I finished, he said something that gave me hope. He said if I were really a professional criminal who committed armed robberies, I would never be stupid enough to leave clear fingerprints all over a safe. Real criminals wear gloves. The fact that my prints were there, perfect and undamaged, suggested either I was the dumbest robber in history or someone had deliberately planted them. Nathan agreed to take my case. His fee was low because he saw this as an opportunity to build his reputation. If he could prove I was framed, it would be the kind of case that made careers. We started working together to build a defense. The first step was figuring out who had the means and opportunity to frame me. I made a list of everyone who had access to my apartment, my car, my personal belongings. Lauren had keys to my place, but she had no motive to frame me. We were happy together, or at least I thought we were. My mother lived in Ohio and had not visited me in over a year. My coworkers did not have access to my home. Then I thought about Derek. Derek and I had been best friends since 9th grade. We grew up in the same neighborhood in Cleveland, went to the same schools, dreamed about our futures together. But while I went to college and built a career, Derek struggled. He dropped out of community college after one semester. He bounced from job to job, never staying anywhere long. He borrowed money and never paid it back. He made bad decisions and blamed everyone else for his problems. But he was my friend, so I always tried to help him. I lent him money when he was behind on rent. I helped him get jobs through my connections, even though he always ended up getting fired. When he lost his apartment 6 months ago, I let him stay with me in Denver for 2 weeks, until he got back on his feet. 2 weeks in my apartment. Using my bathroom, my kitchen, my living room, sleeping in my guest room. I told Nathan about this. He asked me a crucial question. Did Derek ever use my computer? I remembered. Derek had asked to borrow my laptop to search for jobs online. I had given him my password without thinking twice. He was my best friend. Why would I not trust him? Nathan immediately understood the implications. Derek had access to everything. My fingerprints on cups and doorknobs, my hair on pillows and in the shower drain, my personal information on my computer. Credit card numbers, social security number, everything needed to steal someone's identity. Nathan hired a private investigator to look into Derek. What he found made my blood run cold. Derek had purchased a plane ticket to Phoenix on the exact date of the robbery. The ticket was bought using a credit card opened in my name at an address I had never lived at. Derek had also opened a bank account using my identity, depositing cash and withdrawing it in Phoenix. The private investigator tracked Derek to Las Vegas, where he was living large. Expensive hotel rooms, gambling bottle service at clubs. He was spending money like he had just come into a fortune. Nathan immediately contacted Detective Webb with the new evidence. The detective, who had already been suspicious about the case, agreed to reopen the investigation. He coordinated with Las Vegas police to bring Derek in for questioning. When they arrested Derek at his hotel, he was carrying over $15,000 in cash and wearing a watch worth more than my monthly salary. He denied everything at first. He said he had no idea what they were talking about. He had never been to Phoenix. He did not know anything about any robbery. But when Detective Webb confronted him with the evidence, the plane tickets purchased in my name, the bank accounts, the timeline that placed him in Phoenix during the robbery, Derek broke down. The confession came out in pieces. Derek admitted he had planned the whole thing for over 2 years. He had collected my fingerprints from glasses and surfaces around my apartment, carefully lifting them with tape and preserving them. He had gathered strands of my hair from my brush and my pillow. He had copied all my personal information from my laptop. Then he went to Phoenix, committed the robbery with an accomplice, and planted my fingerprints and DNA at the scene. He wore gloves himself. Every piece of evidence pointing to me was deliberately placed to destroy my life. When Detective Webb asked him why Derek's answer was chilling, Derek said he had hated me since high school. He hated that I was always the one who succeeded while he failed. He hated that I went to a good college while he dropped out. He hated that I had a career while he had nothing. He hated that I had money and a girlfriend and a future. But most of all, he hated that I was always the one helping him. Every time I lent him money or found him a job, it reminded him of how pathetic his own life was. My kindness was not kindness to him. It was humiliation. He said he wanted me to know what it felt like to lose everything, to have my whole life ripped away through no fault of my own. I listened to the recording of his confession that Nathan played for me, and I felt like someone was twisting a knife in my chest. 15 years of friendship. All those memories, all those moments I treasured. And the whole time he had been hating me, waiting for the chance to destroy me. The court dismissed all charges against me 3 days later. I was released from jail after spending 2 months behind bars for a crime I never committed. Walking out of those gates, I took a deep breath of fresh air. Real air, not the recycled staleness of the jail. The sky was blue and enormous, and for a moment I just stood there looking up at it. Nathan was waiting for me with Travis. They both hugged me, something men do not usually do, but in that moment it felt right. Detective Webb was there too, He shook my hand and apologized for ever doubting me. I told him he had nothing to apologize for. He was just doing his job, and in the end, he was the one who helped uncover the truth. Derek was charged with armed robbery, aggravated assault, identity theft, and fraud. The prosecutor said he was looking at 20 years minimum. I did not attend his trial. I did not want to see his face. I did not want to hear his voice. I just wanted to move forward with whatever was left of my life. Freedom did not feel the way I expected it to feel. I was out of jail, yes. My name was cleared. But my life was in ruins. The company I had worked for refused to hire me back. They said it was nothing personal, but they worried about the publicity. A quick internet search of my name still brought up articles about my arrest, even though the charges were dropped. Lauren had moved to California. She sent me a text saying she was glad I was innocent and wished me well. I did not respond. My mother called me crying and apologizing. She said she was so sorry for doubting me that she should have believed in her own son. I told her I forgave her, and I meant it. But something between us had changed. A wall had gone up that would take years to bring down. I lost my apartment because I could not pay rent while I was in jail. Most of my belongings had been put in storage, and some had been lost. I moved in with Travis, sleeping on his couch, while I tried to figure out my next move. The anger came in waves. Some days I was fine, able to focus on rebuilding. Other days the rage would hit me out of nowhere. I would think about Derek and what he did, and I would want to drive to whatever prison he was in and look him in the eyes and ask him why. How could you do this to me? I helped you. I treated you like a brother. But I never went. Some questions do not have answers that would satisfy you. Travis convinced me to see a therapist. At first I resisted. I was not the kind of guy who talked about his feelings with strangers. But eventually I agreed, mostly because I was tired of waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing. The therapy helped more than I expected. I learned that what I was feeling, the anger, the betrayal, the difficulty trusting anyone, these were normal responses to trauma. I was not broken. I was wounded, and wounds heal with time and care. I started running every morning. Something about the physical exertion helped clear my head. I would run through the streets of Denver as the sun came up my feet, hitting the pavement in a steady rhythm. And for those 30 or 40 minutes, I was not a man who had been framed and betrayed. I was just a man running, breathing, alive. 6 months after my release, I got a job at a small startup. The pay was less than what I used to make, but the people were good. They knew my story and did not judge me for it. The founder told me everyone deserves a second chance, even if my situation was not really about second chances.